We know how boomers like to tell their grandkids all about how smartphones weren't around back in their day, and how many of them blame everything bad on kids being on their phones at all times. But what if checking notifications could save an innocent child's life? By exploiting our addiction to phone screens for a higher purpose, more than 1,000 innocent children have been saved by what we now call Amber Alerts. And many of you are probably familiar with the Amber Alert program. It's a system that shares photos and information of missing kids via the mass media. And did you know, though, that it was named after an actual person, Amber Hagerman? Amber died 25 years ago, and her killer has still not been found. A member of Amber's community, Diana Simone, a self-described ordinary woman and mother, called a local radio station after Amber's death. She wondered why broadcasters issued things like severe weather warnings, but didn't provide public alerts when a child was kidnapped. Just maybe, if the community had been aware of the abduction and the suspect's description as well as his car, they might have been able to locate Amber still alive, right? Now remember, this was way before Facebook or any social media, and this kind of thinking was ahead of time. Diana was like the Elon Musk of abductions and crime. Well, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but what I'm saying is the solution seems obvious now, but in hindsight, it wasn't. She was the one to suggest it. Last year, exactly 25 years had passed since the last time anyone saw Amber Hagerman alive. A 9-year-old girl was the victim of a brutal murder. But if there can be a bright side, her death has helped save so many others.
Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. You've probably noticed a change of the look of 10-Minute Murder. The logo is completely different. It still says the same thing, but it looks way different. And there are several reasons for that change. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but mostly I will tell you, in case you're curious, it has to do with how well it will look when it's transferred over to stickers and t-shirts and stuff like that. The other one had way too many colors, like a gradient, like a mixture of them. It was going to look awful, so I decided to change it. My name is Joe, BTW. I don't think I mentioned that yet, and I'm glad you joined today. And if today is your first episode listening, please subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. Wherever you're listening right now, make sure you subscribe to 10-Minute Murder. And back to the beginning of this episode where I mentioned boomers. I need you to know that what I said was in no way a slight on people of that generation. I love boomers. My parents are from that second wave of boomers, and they're pretty great people. Now, I did grow up hearing weird stuff like jam up and jelly tight. Apparently, that's an expression for something good or positive. And it's funny to me now, but when I was a kid, I thought, my parents are absolutely crazy. And they got that from a song, by the way. Jam Up and Jelly Tight was a song in the 70s. So that lets me know that one day I'll be in the nursing home tapioca pudding line, probably, and quoting lines from Lil Wayne's song. And to the younger generation, I might as well be saying jam up and jelly tight, because that's how weird it's going to be. Okay, now let's get to today's story. "25 years ago, Amber Hagerman went on her last bike ride. Amber decided to take advantage of a warm January day and spend it on a cool bike ramp with her younger brother, Ricky. They were visiting their grandparents in the city of Arlington, Texas. Amber and Ricky went to an abandoned supermarket parking lot at 3:10 p.m. on January 13th, 1996. The children had spent some time laughing and riding around the local kid's favorite spot. And Ricky decided after a little while he wanted to head back home, so he did. Amber was riding on her pink bike that she had gotten the previous Christmas, enjoying the day in the sun by herself that afternoon. Those were the final moments of her childlike carelessness, which were interrupted by the arrival of a suspicious black truck. The last person who saw Amber was 78-year-old retired machinist Jim Keevil. Jim was standing in his backyard when, through the fence, he witnessed the girl's abduction. As he reported to the police, she was screaming and kicking and had no chance of defending herself. He claimed the kidnapper could be between 25 and 40 years old, was Hispanic, and had an average build. At that same time, Amber's mother was waiting at home for her return because dinner was ready. It was unlike her little Girl Scout to disobey her parents or wander around the neighborhood. A nervous mother and grandparents sent Ricky back, telling him to bring his sister back for dinner. Little Ricky was pedaling as hard as he could, but when he got there, Amber was nowhere to be found. The black car had already screeched away minutes before, leaving only her pink bicycle behind. The incident was reported to authorities right away. The search for Amber Hagerman included FBI agents, but unfortunately she was not seen again until 4 days later, when a guy, taking his dog for a walk behind Forest Hill's apartment, stumbled upon Amber. Her naked, bruised dead body was laying in the sewer, around 5 miles from the parking lot where Ricky left her. The autopsy revealed abuse and torture that likely lasted for 2 days until her throat was cut. Why was it so difficult to locate Amber's killer? Not only did the authorities not have any witnesses apart from Jim Keevil, but the running water where she was dumped washed away critical forensic evidence. According to Mike Simmons, the investigative sergeant who was in charge of Amber's case at the time, a large storm caused a significant volume of water over her dead body, making trace evidence difficult, but not impossible. In this murder case, about 8,000 potential suspects were checked. Potential witnesses were afraid to come forward, though, probably out of fear of deportation. Despite the efforts of the police and federal agents, Amber Hagerman's case remains unsolved. This tragic death deeply touched the local community and led to the creation of an innovative emergency strategy to assist in the rescue of missing children. The idea took off and developed into what is now known as the Amber Alert Program. Thanks to Diana's request, as I mentioned in the beginning of this story, law enforcement officials are supposed to alert radio and television stations about the lost child ASAP when it happens, in the same way that tornado and hurricane alerts are sent to these stations. Amber stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response and was recreated in the legacy of the kidnapped and brutally murdered Amber Hagerman. The program is widespread among the U.S. states. It operates not only in the U.S., though. It has expanded into 22 other countries as well. European countries that have implemented the system include Great Britain, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Ireland. According to the most current data provided, as of November of last year, 1,085 children were rescued specifically because of Amber Alerts. And to issue an Amber Alert, certain conditions have to be met, including a certainty or reasonable belief that an abduction has occurred, a risk of serious bodily harm or death, and descriptive information about the victim who is 17 years of age or younger. The alarm system assumptions have varied throughout the time and have undergone many alterations based on local and national conditions and demands, but the basic principles of functioning have remained the same. Broadcasting a message requires media partners to devote their airtime at the expense of standard activities and is done on a nonprofit basis. The message contains the basic information I mentioned, the missing child's photograph, and, if available, information about the alleged abductor. These notifications also feature an emergency number. Last year, a press conference was held to mark the 25th anniversary of the disappearance of Amber Hagerman in Texas. Police representatives said that they were still seeking the murderer. They also hope that new DNA testing technologies will allow them to make a breakthrough in the case and the final capture of the suspect. Authorities stated, as well, that the immigration status of anyone who might bring forward any useful information will not be questioned. If you have any information that could be helpful about Amber Hagerman, please contact the police department in Arlington, Texas. The most heartbreaking thing about this case is that Donna Williams, Amber's mother, still wonders whether it would have helped to get her daughter back if this warning system had been around 25 years ago. For her, the implementation of the Amber Alert program will forever be bittersweet. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for being a part of it today. And if you enjoyed listening to the story and think maybe you have friends that would too, please let them know about 10-Minute Murder. Also, connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all the places. Links are in the show notes of this episode. And obviously, subscribe to 10-Minute Murder to make sure you don't miss any future episodes if you haven't already done that. Thanks for listening. Be safe and have a good night.